Hey everyone, and welcome to the deep dive. We're diving into something super intriguing today, the pineal gland.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, you guys shared some really cool stuff with us, an excerpt all about, this little gland. It's a potential as like the third eye, all the spiritual connections that people have talked about, going way back.
Yeah, throughout history.
Yeah, so we're going to be going like from ancient beliefs all the way to like cutting edge research. So get ready for a wild ride.
It's amazing how much attention this little, well, it's pea-sized, right, gland gets.
Yeah, insane.
Tucked away in there deep inside the brain.
It really captures the imagination, right? So, okay, like just for anyone who maybe haven't thought about this much before, let's do like pineal gland 101.
Okay.
It gets its name from its shape because it literally looks like a tiny little pine cone.
Ah, cute.
Right. And it's part of the endocrine system.
Right.
So we're talking hormones.
Yes, exactly. And the main one that we're focusing on here is melatonin, which, plays a huge role in regulating your sleep-wake cycle.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. You know that feeling when it starts to get dark and you start getting sleepy?
Yeah.
That's melatonin doing its thing.
Okay, so that's why I basically turned into a pumpkin at like 9 p.m.
Yeah, maybe.
But okay, so this is where it gets really interesting, right?
Yeah.
You might be surprised to learn that for centuries, people have been calling this tiny gland the third eye.
Oh, wow.
Like a gateway to higher consciousness.
Higher consciousness.
I know we're talking like ancient Egypt, we're talking Hindu traditions.
Yeah.
Even like Rene Descartes, the philosopher.
Oh, yeah.
He was totally fascinated by this thing.
It's so cool how these ancient cultures knew that the pineal gland was sensitive to light.
Yeah.
Like way before modern science, rediscovered it.
Thousands of years.
Thousands of years,
Yeah.
right? They connected it with intuition and inner vision, clairvoyance even.
Oh, our voice?
Being able to perceive things beyond the normal senses.
Yeah, it's wild. And the text even talks about the Eye of Horus and the Eye of Ra in ancient Egypt.
I love that stuff.
Right. It's like the resemblance to the pineal gland shape and its location in the brain is crazy.
It's uncanny.
That's like they had ancient brain imaging technology or something.
Seriously.
It makes you wonder, how much we can still learn from those old traditions.
Oh, absolutely.
And their understanding of the human body.
I'm sure there's tons we don't even realize.
Yeah, totally. But okay, let's switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
From ancient wisdom to a more recent discovery that's causing a lot of buzz,
Okay.
DMT in the pineal gland.
Oh, yeah.
This is something that like really caught my eye in the text.
I got.
So scientists found DMT in the pineal glands of rats.
Interesting.
Can you like break down DMT for us and why this discovery is such a big deal?
Sure. So DMT stands for dimethyltryptamine, and it's a really powerful psychedelic compound.
Wow.
And it's famous for those intense mystical experiences people have.
Oh, wow.
But we're still figuring out a lot about DMT, and you know what it actually does in the brain?
So is there like a debate about whether the pineal gland is the main source of DMT in the brain?
Yeah, exactly. That's the big question, right? I mean, the study you mentioned from 2013 really got everyone excited, but some researchers think that the enzymes that you need to actually make DMT could be in other parts of the brain, too.
Okay.
So maybe focusing just on the pineal gland is like an oversimplification.
Interesting.
Right.
Okay, so we've gone from ancient spiritual beliefs to this fascinating discovery about DMT.
Right.
And now let's talk about something totally different, piezoelectric crystals in the pineal gland.
Ooh, that's a good one.
So what's the deal with this discovery and why is it so important?
Okay, so back in 2002, researchers found these piezoelectric crystals in the pineal gland.
Okay.
And these crystals have this amazing ability to generate an electrical charge
Really?
when you apply pressure to them.
Wow.
And it works the other way around, too. Pressure can be created by applying an electrical charge.
That's wild.
So this has led to, some people thinking that maybe these crystals allow the pineal gland to act like an antenna.
An antenna.
Yeah, like receiving and transmitting information beyond our usual senses.
So could this be like the connection to those ideas about higher consciousness and the pineal gland being a gateway to other realms?
Maybe, right. It's a really cool idea, but we're still in the theoretical stage. But the fact that these crystals are there in the pineal gland opens up a whole new avenue for exploration.
Right.
Like, what if these crystals are sensitive to electromagnetic fields?
Yeah.
Then the pineal gland could be interacting with our environment.
Wow.
And maybe even with energies that we don't even understand yet.
That's mind-blowing.
It is, right.
Okay, so speaking of like pushing the boundaries of what we understand,
Right.
the text mentions this guy, Dr. Joe Dispenza,
Oh, yeah.
and he has these techniques for stimulating the pineal gland.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us about his methods and like what kind of impact could they have?
So Dr. Dispenza believes that through things like, focused breathing and visualization,
Mm-hmm.
we can actually boost the activity of the pineal gland.
Oh, wow.
He says that these techniques can create a state of coherence in the brain,
Okay.
which lets us tap into these heightened states of awareness
Wow.
and even influence our reality.
Really? So
Yeah.
it's not just about, like, passively watching the pineal gland do its thing,
Yeah.
but actually, like, actively engaging with it to unlock its potential?
Exactly.
That's pretty empowering.
It is, right? It suggests that we might have more control over our own consciousness and spiritual development than we think.
Yeah, that's awesome. But hold on, before we'd all start meditating our way to enlightenment,
Okay.
we need to talk about the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There are all these claims about the pineal gland and its potential, but are there any risks involved in trying to stimulate it?
That's a good question.
Yeah, should we be careful about these techniques?
Well, things like meditation have been around for a long time, and they're generally considered safe.
Mm.
But it's always smart to be cautious when you're trying something that claims to change how your brain works.
Yeah.
Especially if you have any health conditions. You
Mhm.
should definitely talk to a doctor before you start anything new.
Good advice.
We're still learning about the pineal gland.
Yeah.
So it's best to proceed with, enthusiasm, but also with informed caution.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, let's go back to the DMT thing for a minute.
Sure.
This idea that the pineal gland might release DMT during dreaming and near-death experiences is really fascinating.
Yeah. Yes.
What's the science behind that theory, and is there actually any evidence to back it up?
Well, it's definitely one of the most interesting hypotheses about the pineal gland, and that study we talked about from 2018, where they found increased DMT levels in rats after cardiac arrest.
Right.
It definitely adds to the intrigue, but
Yeah.
it's important to remember that near-death experiences are super complex,
Hmm.
and it's unlikely that just one thing can explain them. DMT might be part of the picture, but it's probably just one piece of a much bigger puzzle.
So while it's tempting to connect DMT directly to those, like, profound experiences people report during near-death events,
Yeah,
we shouldn't oversimplify the science.
exactly. We need more research to fully understand what's really going on during those experiences.
Right. It's complex.
It is.
So, wow, this has been an amazing journey so far.
I know, right?
From ancient wisdom to modern science to these mind-blowing theories.
It's crazy.
What are, like, the main takeaways you think people should keep in mind as we keep exploring these mysteries of the pineal gland?
I think the most important thing to remember is that this tiny little gland
Mm-hmm.
has this incredible hold on our collective imagination.
It does.
It reminds us that there are these vast, uncharted territories
Yeah.
within our own bodies and minds.
Like this little pine cone-shaped organ.
Yeah.
It's like a tiny little universe itself, full of wonder and mystery and potential.
I love that. It really speaks to the fact that there's so much more to explore and discover within each of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, this conversation has left me with more questions than answers.
I bet.
If the pineal gland can really connect us to something bigger than ourselves, what does that mean for how we live our lives?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Like, how should we use this knowledge to make decisions and take action?
That's a really deep question. And honestly, I think it's one that everyone has to answer for themselves. But I do think it points to a level of interconnectedness
Yeah.
that we don't always acknowledge in our everyday lives.
Right.
Like our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, they
Yeah.
might have ripple effects
Wow.
that go way beyond our immediate world.
Okay, so it's not just about figuring out the secrets of the pineal gland, but also about understanding the responsibility that comes with that knowledge.
Exactly.
Wow, I'm feeling inspired and a little overwhelmed right now.
Gotta get it.
I need a minute to process all this.
That's okay.
Okay, but, the text also mentions that some people believe the pineal gland releases DMT from near-death experiences.
Right.
What's the scientific evidence for that, and how does it fit into what we know about the gland's role in consciousness?
Well, the research on this is still pretty new.
Okay.
That 2018 study we mentioned where they found higher DMT levels in rats after cardiac arrest.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely interesting, but it's not the whole story.
Yeah.
Near-death experiences are so complex,
They are.
I don't think we can explain them with just one chemical or one biological process.
So it's tempting to say that DMT is the key to those profound experiences people have.
Yeah,
But we can't oversimplify things.
exactly.
It's probably a mix of things,
Yeah.
physical, psychological, maybe even spiritual,
Could be.
all contributing to those near-death experiences.
Yeah, it's a mystery.
It is a mystery.
A beautiful one.
And it reminds us that there's still so much we don't know.
Right.
about the pineal gland and about consciousness itself.
Absolutely, and that's what makes this whole area so exciting to explore.
Yeah.
We're just scratching the surface.
Okay, I have to ask,
Go ahead.
and I'm sure our listeners are wondering this too,
Yeah.
given everything we've talked about,
Yeah.
what do you personally believe about the pineal gland and its potential?
Oh, wow.
Do you think it's really a gateway to another realm, like some people say?
That's a great question. You know, as a scientist, I'm trained to be skeptical
Yeah.
and to look for evidence.
Right.
And while there's a lot of interesting research out there and tons of anecdotal stories,
Yeah.
we still don't have definitive proof one way or the other.
So you're keeping an open mind, but waiting for more data to come in.
Exactly. But at the same time,
Yeah.
I recognize that science has its limits.
Right.
There might be things about human experience and consciousness itself
Yeah.
that are just beyond what we can measure and understand with our current scientific methods.
It's kind of humbling, isn't it?
It is.
To think that there might be whole realms of existence that we can't even grasp with our current understanding.
Yeah, it really makes you think.
It does.
And it makes you realize that we need to be humble
Yeah.
when we're trying to understand these big mysteries of the universe and our own existence.
That's a good point. We may never have all the answers,
True.
but just trying to learn and understand is valuable in itself.
Absolutely.
So if we could sum up everything we've talked about into one key takeaway for our listeners, what would it be?
Ooh, good question.
What message do you want them to walk away with as they keep exploring the pineal gland and the mysteries of consciousness?
I would say stay curious, keep asking questions, and never underestimate the power of your own mind.
I love that.
The pineal gland is this tiny but powerful reminder
Yeah,
that we all have this incredible potential within us
right.
to connect to something greater than ourselves.
That's a message of empowerment
It is.
and a call to explore those uncharted territories within us.
Right.
Well said. And on that inspiring note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the fascinating world of the pineal gland.
I agree.
Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey of discovery.
It's been my pleasure.
And remember,
Yeah,
the exploration doesn't end here.
not at all.
The pineal gland is an invitation to keep searching for understanding,
Yes.
both within ourselves and in the vast universe we're all a part of.
Beautiful.
So to all our listeners out there, keep those minds open, keep those questions coming, and maybe, just maybe, give your pineal gland a little extra love today.
I like that.
Who knows what wonders might be waiting to be unlocked.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Bye, everyone. Yeah, it really is a testament to like the power of human curiosity, you know?
Totally. And it makes you wonder, with all this talk about like higher consciousness and the pineal gland being a gateway, what does that even mean?
Right.
Like, how do we even begin to define or understand something as like slippery as consciousness
Yeah, that's a question that's been bugging philosophers and scientists forever.
for centuries?
Yeah. From a purely scientific perspective, we're still trying to figure out the basics. Like, how does the physical stuff of the brain create the experience of awareness, you know?
It's wild. We know there's electrical activity and chemical signals zipping between neurons.
Right.
But how does that turn into the feeling of being you experiencing the world?
It's mind-boggling.
Totally. And then there's the question of whether consciousness is only a product of the brain or if there's something more to it,
Yeah.
something beyond the physical stuff that we can measure.
Right, like something bigger.
Which brings us back to this idea of the pineal gland as a kind of receiver.
Yeah.
What if it's not just about making hormones like melatonin,
Right.
but also about picking up information from somewhere else?
That's what some researchers are looking into. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's connected to that idea of a universal consciousness,
Okay.
like a field of awareness that we can tap into under the right conditions.
So like imagine a giant network,
Yeah.
and the pineal gland is our personal access point,
Exactly.
like our brain's Wi-Fi antenna.
I like that analogy.
Right.
It's not perfect, but it helps to visualize something that's really hard to grasp with our normal way of thinking.
Totally. And this Dr. Joe Dispenza we talked about,
Yeah.
he believes we can actually train our pineal glands to be better receivers.
Right. Yeah.
Using specific techniques.
Right. He teaches things like meditation, visualization-focused breathing, and he thinks these can boost pineal gland activity.
Wow.
and open us up to these deeper levels of consciousness.
But we're not just sitting around waiting.
No.
We can actually participate in expanding our awareness.
Exactly.
That's powerful stuff.
It suggests we have more control over our spiritual development than we might think.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
It's inspiring. But, I want to be realistic here, too.
Sure.
The text is super excited about the pineal gland's potential.
Yeah.
But are there any risks to trying to stimulate it? Should we be approaching these techniques with caution?
That's a really good question, and it's important to be careful when you're doing anything that claims to change how your brain works.
Right.
So, like, meditation has been practiced for centuries,
Right.
and it's generally safe,
Mm-hmm.
but it's always best to talk to your doctor
Yeah,
before you start any new practice, especially if you have any health conditions.
that makes sense.
Mm.
What about the DMT connection?
Okay.
Is there a safe and ethical way to explore that side of the pineal gland?
Well, like we said, DMT is a really powerful psychedelic, and it's illegal in a lot of places.
Right.
And it can be risky, especially if you're not in a safe and controlled environment.
So no DIY DMT experiments at home.
Definitely not a good idea.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
If someone's curious about exploring altered states of consciousness,
Yeah.
are there safer ways to do it?
Oh, absolutely. Like meditation or guided imagery.
Mm-hmm.
Those are good options. And you don't have to take any substances.
Oh. Yeah, that's good advice. So we've talked about ancient wisdom, modern science, the pineal gland's spiritual potential, and some of the risks to watch out for.
Right?
Is there anything else we should consider as we delve deeper into this topic?
Let's see. I think it's really important to remember that this is still a developing field of study.
Okay.
We still have a lot to learn about the pineal gland
Yeah.
and what it can really do.
So it's tempting to get caught up in the excitement of these discoveries and theories.
I know, right?
But we need to be a little skeptical, too.
Yeah, we have to be careful about what information we believe and not jump to conclusions based on early findings or just anecdotal stories.
Right.
We need solid scientific research to separate fact from fiction.
That's a great reminder. But I have to admit, there's something really thrilling about exploring the unknown.
Oh, definitely.
Especially when it's about the mysteries inside our own bodies and minds.
It's like we're exploring inner space.
I love that. It makes you wonder what other secrets are hidden inside us just waiting to be discovered.
Yeah, who knows what we'll find.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that the journey itself is often more important than reaching some final destination.
I agree.
But I think it's safe to say this deep dive has sparked some serious curiosity in our listeners.
I hope so.
So for anyone who wants to learn more, where should they start? What resources or avenues of inquiry would you recommend?
That's a great question. And I think the most important thing is to be really careful about the information you come across. There's a lot out there.
Yeah.
And not all of it is reliable or scientifically accurate.
So how can people sift through all the noise and find trustworthy sources?
Good question. I would say look for sources that are based on scientific research and evidence-based practices.
Yeah.
Be wary of anything that sounds too good to be true
Yeah.
or promises quick fixes or miracles.
Right. We need to be critical thinkers,
Exactly.
not just accept everything we read or hear.
Right. Remember, the science on the pineal gland is still developing. There's so much potential, but we need to be balanced. Acknowledge what we know and what we don't know.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to go back to something you said earlier
Okay.
about how exploring the pineal gland isn't just about scientific curiosity.
Right.
It's about understanding what it means to be human.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about that? What can we learn about ourselves by studying this tiny gland?
I think the pineal gland reminds us that we are much more complex than we often realize. It challenges us to look beyond the purely physical.
Yeah.
And consider the possibility that there are parts of us that go beyond what science can currently explain.
It's it's encouraging us to embrace the mystery.
Yes.
And admit that there's so much we don't know about ourselves and the universe.
Exactly. And I think that sense of wonder and possibility
Yeah.
is so important for our growth.
Absolutely. So if we had to boil down everything we've talked about into one key takeaway for our listeners, what would it be?
Oh, that's a tough one. Let me think. I would say stay curious. Keep asking questions and never underestimate the power of your own mind.
I love that.
The pineal gland shows us that we all have this incredible potential
Yeah.
to tap into something bigger than ourselves.
The message of empowerment
Yes, it is.
and a call to explore those uncharted territories within us.
Absolutely.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
Well, on that inspiring note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of the pineal gland.
I agree.
Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey.
It's been my pleasure.
And remember, the exploration doesn't have to end here.
It doesn't.
The pineal gland invites us to keep searching for understanding
Right.
within ourselves and in the universe we're all a part of.
It's a lifelong journey.
So to all our listeners out there, keep those minds open, keep those questions coming, and maybe give your pineal gland a little extra love today.
Yeah, good idea.
Who knows what wonders might be waiting to be unlocked. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.